Hey, what's going on, YouTube? This is Jim, back with some Overwatch gameplay. Today I'm going to be throwing down with Pharah. Now, Pharah, I believe, is one of the most difficult heroes to play in Overwatch for a couple different reasons. I actually had a pretty good game with her this round, which is why I wanted to show it off. And I'm giving a shout out to my friend Sidney, who's under the handle Sidarian. We were just talking about how much he liked my Reaper video, and I said, okay, dude, I'm going to make you internet famous. So if you're watching this, Sid, awesome playing with you, brother. All right, back to Pharah. So Pharah, I believe, as I mentioned, is one of the hardest heroes to play for a few different reasons. She is extremely squishy. She only has 200 HP, which is among the lowest in the game. Additionally, her rockets have splash damage, and you say, well, geez, isn't that a good thing? Well, typically it is. However, you will hurt yourself a lot if you're not paying attention. If you shoot nearby, you have a tendency to, if you hit a railing, even if you shoot an enemy at point blank range, there's a chance that you're going to eat some of your own splash damage. Finally, I think what makes her so difficult is that her best tool set requires her to be high up in the air, which makes her Widowmaker bait, McCree bait, and maybe another well-placed Pharah rocket bait. So you have to kind of be careful how you play with her. I've seen some pretty effective play styles with her. I find that you have to be extremely fluid with her, and you can't necessarily rely on her really high jump, because just because you're high up in the air doesn't mean anything. You really have to be in a defensive position. You really have to be in an area where if you do use your jump jet, you are kind of against a wall or against another structure to kind of shield some of the damage that you're going to absorb. So let's go through her abilities. I'll talk a little bit about them as you kind of watch some of the gameplay in the background. Her first ability is Hover, which is her passive ability. You'll notice that she has a fuel tank that's, that is her only jump. And so she can't jump, she just bumps her little fuel tank. She can hover in the air, which is nice to come down short distances and to make sure that you can still have a good line of sight. It works obviously very well with Jump Jet, where you can launch really high in the air. That's one of her other abilities. You'll see me use that quite a bit. There's Jump Jet right there. So you could Jump Jet, and then sometimes you could use the hover to kind of boost around slightly to stay up high. And I think that's something that's really important with Pharah, is taking advantage of the altitude. You'll notice a lot of the maps have almost a second area to them above, everything else. We have a lot of catwalks and awnings and different types of building supports and structures that you could stand on, and it's really important for her to take advantage of those and to use those as staging points, as launch-off points, to really find the next good avenue of attack. She also has the Concussive Blast, where she fires this wrist rocket that doesn't do any damage, but it knocks back enemies. And the nice thing about that, where that really comes in handy, is if you want to break apart a pocket healer like a Mercy on a Reinhardt, or if you have a couple characters that are huddled together and you think you can kind of push one aside to use it. Be forewarned with Concussive Blast, though, that more often than not you're going to mess up your teammates' shots. She's one of the few characters. Lucio has his push, where he can push everybody back with his weapon. Other than him and her, there's a very few amount of characters that have some sort of knockback ability. And if you're, using it incorrectly, or you're using it kind of without relying or discussing it with your team to let them know, you're liable to mess up some shots, to mess up some ultimates. The worst thing you could do is if all the enemies are bunched up and Junkrat's coming around with this perfect ultimate, and you end up concussive blasting everyone and pushing them, scattering them all around, and then you feel like an idiot. So you got to be careful with that. But one-on-one it is actually useful because it does disorient most enemies, and it will kind of, prevent them from lining up shots that they may normally have. It's also really good against Traub with his sentry gun. If you want to move him back and you want to just focus on the sentry gun, that's really useful too, so he's not standing there wailing on it. The one thing, the criticism I'd have to say with Pharah, I'm not a big fan of her ultimate, which I'm using right now. That is called Barrage. What she does is Justice rains from above, and she drops a bunch of rockets to destroy groups of enemies, according to the wiki. I find it very weak. I don't find it very powerful, and I feel like most people kind of see it coming and they could take cover quickly. You could use it anywhere, although most people, myself included, for the most part, will use it right after a jump jet so you have a lot of altitude. But keep in mind, you are not invincible during this, and there's a really good chance if you're up against a decent Widowmaker, another Pharah, anybody who has some sort of ranged attack, there's a really good chance you're going to get swatted down before it's used. So you have to be very careful how you want to use it. But the damage isn't very strong, and you really have to keep the rockets focused on people for a long time in order to get any eliminations. And I think as a result of that, it kind of reduces some of the efficiency of the attack. You know, you think of a lot of the other ultimates are just kind of one and dones. When Bastion hits you with this tank round, you're pretty much dead. When Eva's or Diva's mech blows up, that's game over. But with Pharah's, it's like, okay, I'm casting my ultimate now. Here comes the rockets. Okay, I got to hit you with rockets for a really long time to get some kills. I mean, you see there, I mean, I did not get all those kills when I had them all, you know, deadlocked in my sights. So for that reason, I think she's difficult to play, and I find her ultimate a little underwhelming. But as an overall support character, I think she serves best on the battlefield with kind of what a Reaper role is. I think using her jump jet and her hover abilities to get into places you wouldn't normally get into is probably your best bet. One other thing I wanted to mention with her is rocket direct damage versus rocket splash damage. Obviously, direct damage will do more damage, but if you miss, and this is another reason I feel like she's a little bit more difficult to play than other characters, you flat out miss, no damage is done. A lot of other characters, when you shoot, you actually do a little bit of kind of splash damage, or not splash damage, but like area of effect damage, like Reaper's shotgun, for example. It clears the whole hallway. Soldier 76 spraying like a madman, there's a chance that one of his shots are going to hit. But with Pharah, a direct rocket that misses, unless it's near a wall, does no damage. So keep that in mind with playing with her. But she is still rewarding to play, and I do think she has a great spot on the battlefield. Just keep in mind, like I said, when you use her boost, you want to use it defensively, and you want to make sure you're not hovering in the middle of an open field, because you will be bait for better Overwatch heroes, and you're going to have a rough time with her. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed my little dissertation on Pharah. Hope you enjoyed the gameplay. As always, I want to thank each and every one of you so much for watching. Get out there, play Overwatch, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.